what I would call the Mattel Triad. It's Uno, Phase 10, Skip-Bo. Arguably, this is the worst of all of those. It's real time. You just play as quickly as you can, which is why I think it would be a better game than Skip-Bo. Personally, I think this is like a kid's game, and again, one of those ones that you probably should know how to play. However, in some parts of the world, it's taken very seriously. I'm working my way up the Board Game Geek charts with 300 board games that I've played, and my thoughts and experiences. Number 275, Nine Men's Morris. This is a very old abstract game, quite simple. I give this one a 6 out of 10. I would play it, but there's not much lasting interest here. Basically, you're taking it in turns to put your 9, whatever they are, out. They can be little marbles, they can be, I had a set that was a little wooden piece about yay big with golf tees. Don't even know where I got that one. You are trying to eliminate your opponent's pieces off the board. Once you've taken it in turns to put all your pieces out, you're basically going to then start moving them around the board from one spot to an adjacent spot, and when you have 3 in a row, you can take one of your opponent's pieces off the board. This counts as 3 in a row, but you can't move the pieces on the diagonals. You can only move the pieces around here. 3 in a row, 3 in a row, 3 in a row. It is a solved game, so basically if you play perfectly, there'll be a draw. So there's not any great advanced strategy here, but I think it's a game that everybody should play. It turns up in these kind of compendiums of games along with things like Chinese checkers, which is a much worse game because it goes on way longer and doesn't really offer any significantly more choices. Nine Men's Morris, as I said, it's a solved game, but it's relatively quick. And you'll enjoy playing a few rounds of it until you get the hang of it, and then you realise there's not much left there. There's all sorts of implementations of this. This is pretty cool. Nice outdoor set. I would play this. This would be good fun for the novelty of playing outside. And there's a nice, cute, cheap thing. It's a simple abstract game. You can dress it up however you like. A Scottish friend of mine taught me how to play this. He had a really nice round marble or granite or something, round with the square shape in the middle and divots for marbles, like really nice marbles. And then I bought this wooden thing, as I said. Used to play this with my fiance before we were married, the mother of my children. And it's available on Board Game Arena, so you can play it for free. I'm sure there's phone versions and probably other online versions as well. Number 274, Boxes, 6 out of 10. This is a kid's paper and pencil game that we used to play at school. Apparently there's plasticky versions of it as well. It doesn't have any great lasting interest, but it's good fun on a piece of paper when you're like 9 years old. You very soon learn what the strategies are. When you surround a box, you get to fill your thing in, and usually your initial, and then have another go. And depending on how the board state is, can we look at that one? This is what tends to happen in a proper game. People will not want to connect things up, but if you can get 3 sides and it's your turn, you'll get the 4th side. Like here, someone can go here and get a box on their turn, and then they're going to try and string a bunch of stuff. Eventually, the board will be full up with all the places you can go without giving your opponent a 3-sided area. But that eventually you'll run out of those spots, and then someone will go 4, 4, 4, 4, 4 and string a whole bunch of things together and win the game. So, there's a little bit of interest in the randomness of how people choose to put their pieces. This was good fun when I was in primary school, and that's about the end of that. Anyway, 6 out of 10, classic old pencil paper game that also has plastic versions. Number 273, Frantic Frankfurt. There, I got it right. This is an odd one because I've never played the physical game. However, there is an iPad version that is still available. It's been around for like 10 years. It was last updated a couple of years ago. It does still run. And it's got various solo modes. Basically, this is so that's my experience. So I'm also trying to extrapolate how would it be like in real life. As an iPad app, 10 out of 10. As a real life game, I'm going to assume it's not as good. So anyway, it's just a weird category. It's basically like a ladder climbing type thing without the tricks. So ladder climbing game, you're trying to get rid of cards out of your hand and you're making tricks along the way. This one, you are just getting rid of cards. It's going to be very similar to another game that's going to be higher on this same video, which is Skip-Bo. I think this one will be better. You start out with these piles of cards in front of you, and you're trying to get rid of them, basically. And you can, by putting them up here, These piles down here you can manipulate by putting a lower card on top of a higher card, but what you're really mainly trying to do is get your cards out of these piles and into the middle piles, and you can go from a lower number to a higher number if it's a different colour. So this red 8 could go on this yellow 7. This yellow 10 cannot go on a yellow 7 or this one because it's the same number, but it could go on top of the red 5. You can, however, go from a higher number to a lower number if it's even to odd. So if you put the 20 out here, you could then put the 13 on the 20. Even to odd, high to low, low to high has to be a different colour. The thing about this is it's real time. You just play as quickly as you can, which is why I think it would be a better game than Skip-Bo. But it's a bit, well, it's frantic. That's the whole point. I really like the artwork. It's this hand drawn. In the rule book, it actually uses these characters to have little call outs for the rules, little speech bubbles, which is nice. I really like the way that they've, like, if it's the yellow one, all the yellow ones have the same picture, but it's a different aspect of that same picture. There's the red 11, the red 7. It's the same woman from different aspects, and all of these things. Obviously, there's a master picture of a certain size, and then they're zooming in on different parts of that image. I wish more games did that. Like it's literally the same number. There's no reason why they had to be different cards. They could have just used one static image, but they didn't, and they did it in a way that's probably pretty economical. Some games do just have that, like, it's that card, it's always that card. I think maybe like Jaipur, except some of the camels have a little panda bear on the back, and that's a special card. That's good, that one. So yeah, I'd love to play it in real life. I think it would be a hoot. One of the criticisms was there's not really any penalty if you make a mistake. I think probably you could work that out. House rule something, take the card back, whatever. And I think it would be much more interesting than, say, Skip-Bo, which is just, I'm playing my game and then you get to turn to play your solo game. Anyway, we'll talk about that when we get to Skip-Bo. Number 272, Dominoes, 4 out of 10. Personally, I think this is like a kid's game, and again, one of those ones that you probably should know how to play. However, in some parts of the world, this is a serious game that men play in cafes, coffee shops. This is Palestinians and Israelis. I know it's pretty big in Turkish coffee shops, I think. Here we got Guadalupe. Men, playing. This is not a kid's game. In some parts of the world, you bet money on it. I think it's big in Cuba. It's kind of like poker. There's bluffing. There's counting of cards. Looking and thinking, okay, what do I think other people have? What's the look on their face like? Do they look like they can have a good move or not? My grandfather used to hold the dominoes like this. He'd just pick them up off the table, look at the one he wanted to play, plonk them down like that, pick them up with his hand, and I was like 8 or 9, and I thought that was almost like a magic trick. You've got 7 dominoes, and you're trying to, on your turn, you got to match up the ends. If it's a double, you put them sideways like that just to make it more obvious that they're the same domino. It probably takes up slightly less space on the table. And you can bend them around if table space is an issue. This thing about the double 6 and going off to the side here, I'm not entirely sure that that's actually an official rule. That might be a variant. We used to play that way, however, a house rule, I suppose, might be my first ever house rule, but I guess we weren't the only ones. This was pretty much the set that my grandfather had. I'm not sure that the colours were the same, but it's a tale of 2 sets of grandparents, right? On one side of the family, my father's side, they had the nice, pretty coloured ones, and on my mother's side of the family, had a set that we never played, by the way, or at least my grandmother on that side never played games. They were all the white and black, the plain white and black, and that sums up my 2 sides of the family better than just about anything I can think of. One side, pretty coloured dominoes. Grandparents would actually play with us kids with the coloured dominoes, and on the other side, black and white, boring dominoes, sat in a drawer in the laundry, never played. Number 271, Kabaleo, 4 out of 10. This is a social deduction game. It's completely abstract, so I suppose we call it an abstract social deduction game. It is not an abstract strategy game. For one thing, the position of the pieces is irrelevant. It is literally just how many of each colour is visible. It has a feeling that it's kind of both too long and too short. Basically, you're starting with these pyramid shapes, these cones, and you're going to have a color assigned to you, and there's a little special cone that has a hidden color inside that you get given out, which is kind of overproduced, really. It looks really nice. Like, the pieces are really nice. The actual real life pieces are really nice. On your turn, you're going to have a certain number of randomly assigned to you cones, and you're trying to make it so that at the end of the game, your color has the most represented out there. Hence, kind of social deduction, because if you make it super obvious which one you're going for, then people will just cover you up. So whichever piece is the one on top is the piece that counts. If you put the same color on top of, like if we put a purple on top of this purple, you take both the purples out of the game, and then whatever color's underneath is the color. So you can essentially add or remove colors. So you might be putting a piece on because your piece is underneath to reveal that. You don't want to be super obvious about that. On the other hand, you've only really got 4 turns. And if you don't have any of the pieces in your color, because they're random, that limits what you can do. Like, you can't just plonk one on top and say, that's my color. But then you probably wouldn't want to do that anyways. It's too short and too long, because if you totally go out and just try and get your color maximized, people are going to see what you're doing, and there's no time to recover from that. And if you don't go and actually put out your pieces and try and make your pieces most visible, you don't have enough time in the game to correct for that. So it just ends up feeling quite random and lucky. And I wouldn't want to have to sort out these pieces either. This is on Board Game Arena. You can play this for free online, and I did it once or twice, and it's a nice experiment that someone thought up of this design, and it just unfortunately doesn't really work. Number 270, Skippo, 6 out of 10. That's a weird rating. I only gave Frantic Frankfurt 5 out of 10, but that's because I haven't played it, and I don't feel like I can really give it a higher rating when I haven't actually played it. But I think it would be a better game. Anyway, this one I have played. Played this one with the mother of my children quite some time ago, 20 years or whatever. I haven't played it a lot since. I played it on the app here and there, probably every few years. We sort of pull out the app and have a round of it. This is another kind of ladder climbing light type thing, in that you're trying to get rid of a bunch of cards, but you're actually not having to make any tricks. And it's one of what I would call the Mattel triad. It's Uno, Phase 10, Skippo. Arguably, this is the worst of all of those. And I say that because this really only works with 2 players. You are basically playing solitaire on your turn, and then you're waiting for the other person or people to do their thing, and then you're playing solitaire. Yes, there's some interaction in the middle. Anyway, it was explaining how the game works. So there are some similarities here with Frantic Frankfurt. You've got like 30 cards or something you're trying to get rid of, and you can put them in the middle, which is ultimately where they need to go, or you can put them in these temporary stacks in front of you. You've got these 4 virtual slots. They start out empty, and you can put the cards there. What you typically want to do is what this person's done, put them in runs from biggest to smallest, because if you can't put a card out of your hand out, but you've got the next one up, you can put one from your temporary pile to the middle, and then you can put the one from your hand out. So you're using those ones to fill in gaps, so you can put the cards out of your hand in the middle. And then eventually you need to clear out your piles as well. You need to have no cards in front of you to win the game. The first person to do that wins. But you're literally only putting the next number up. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you've got wild cards in the game that help with that. Unlike Frantic Frankfurt, you only have that option, a smaller number to the next number up. That's it. There's that interaction from the middle piles and where you leave that state for the next person. And you could be paying attention to what they've got out in front of you, but mostly you're just trying to string together as many cards out of your hand as you can. But as I said, arguably, I think Uno's better because the turns are shorter. It moves around. It plays bigger numbers better as long as you only play a couple of rounds. I think Phase 10 is more interesting because it has a natural built-in catch-up mechanic, and it's just that it's got too many phases, but there's some variety to that. You're not doing the same thing every round. This one, you are literally doing the same thing every game. It's very mechanical. The number 1 voted photo on Board Game Geek is this nice person who plays with their 90-year-old neighbour, and I think that's what the game is for. 2 players, over coffee, having a chat, doing something with your hands. It's actually quite good for that. 3, 4, 5 people, Goodness me. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, and I'll see you on the next one. But unlike Frantic Frankfurt, in Frantic Frankfurt, I gave Frantic Frankfurt number 273, Frantic Frankfurt. Say that 3 times fast. Frantic Frankfurt. Clarity's here with Frantic Frankfurt. Gotta stop saying that because I just can't ever get it out. Okay, that's it. Let's go.